Good morning. It is Friday, November 30th. A Fox News alert. Any moment now, President Trump sitting down for breakfast with the Argentine president ahead of the G20 summit. We understand they're just wrapping that up.
Yeah, there's a lot to be expected from this summit. The new trade agreement that the president is expected to sign with Canada and Mexico today. We'll have more on that.
We have a very hard time. We are almost to the end of our strength. We're a migrant town, yes, but we have never had this problem.
And taking Tijuana to the tipping point.
The mayor telling Fox News they cannot sustain the caravan economically. The one-on-one interview you won't see anywhere else.
Hey guys, 1.1 left.
Jeez, incredible fire rescue video out of California showing officers just feet away from a wall of flames.
Fox and Friends First continues right now.
And good morning to you. You're watching Fox and Friends First on this Friday morning. I'm Rob Schmidt.
And I'm Jillian Mealy. Thank you so much for starting your day with us. Let's get straight to this Fox News alert now. A deputy U.S. Marshal is shot and killed trying to serve a warrant. The suspect, Ryan Schelzinger, shooting the officer while barricaded inside a home in Arizona.
Oh, my God. Get behind the car. Hurry up. Go. Go inside.
Now, Schlesinger eventually surrendered and is under arrest. He was already wanted for stalking law enforcement. The name of the deputy killed has not been released. We will keep you posted on that story, of course. Also breaking right now, 3 people dead, 8 others injured after a truck crashes while trying to escape Border Patrol. Agents trying to pull over that truck on a California highway less than 10 miles from the southern border when the driver took off at speeds of about 100 miles an hour. The truck losing control, smashing into an embankment after hitting a spike strip. We're not sure exactly who was killed in that accident, but the American truck driver of that truck has been arrested.
Tijuana's mayor is now taking aim at the organizers of the migrant caravan, saying he's never seen a situation like this. The mayor sitting down for an exclusive interview with Fox News, and Griff Jenkins is embedded with the caravan in Mexico. He joins us live from Tijuana. Griff.
Guys, good morning. It is unbelievable. It's rained for the last 24 hours, and this 6,000 migrant encampment is absolutely overrun. Take a look at these images. They've moved into the street. It's been into the 50s now for 24 hours, and trash is everywhere. They're flooded out. You look at the trash coming here. It's amazing.
Welcome to the Shark Tank.
On the ground, even some pills, because remember, they've got more than 60% have the flu, have respiratory infections. They have tuberculosis, HIV/AIDS, and a lice infection. But I want you to see inside. We can't go in at night. They're protected, but look at what the damage is in there now. The mayor, Juan Manuel Gastelum, is at the center of it. He's footing the entire bill for all of this, $30,000 a day. He says he can't continue, and he blames the organizers. Listen.
Those are really criminals because they're dealing with lives. They're dealing with people. It's a federal crime. If they ask me, do you know who they are? No, I don't know, but just look at the films. Look at them and you'll find who are they.
And remember what happened on Sunday? Well, that's some of those films he's talking about. Interestingly, CBP did not arrest any of the 42 that got over the fence, but he says that was an extremely costly day for the residents of Tijuana. Listen.
People from San Diego cross the border to work in Tijuana. People from Tijuana cross the border to work in the United States. In those 6 hours that the border was closed, we lost approximately 129 million pesos. That's not fair. So how do you think people from Tijuana feel towards those people who are making problems?
Mayor Gastelum says that he hopes the federal government will step in. The new Mexican president, inaugurated tomorrow, will step in and help out here. They're trying to possibly move some of these people today, but the weather's not cooperating at the moment, guys.
All right, Griff, thank you very much for that update. Yeah, pouring rain for days. All right, in addition to stemming the flow of illegal immigration, President Trump has to stop the flow of drugs across the border.
And Fox News contributor Tammy Bruce is slamming partisan politics for putting their differences with the president before the safety of the American people.
90% of the opioids, the fentanyl, the synthetic that is coming into this country is from Mexico, is from the southern border. It's a combination of Chinese influence as well, but it's Mexican. It's the Sinaloa cartel in Mexico. So in order to deal with this, Tucker, we'd have to actually talk seriously about border security, and we can't do that because then that would make Donald Trump look right. So we've got so many Americans being sacrificed because politicians don't want to have a conversation about security at the border.
Mexico's new president officially takes office tomorrow. Washington is pushing for his administration to crack down harder on the violent cartels responsible for smuggling drugs into the U.S. And any moment now, President Trump will be kicking off the G20 summit at a bilateral breakfast with the president of Argentina. Later today, he will sign the NAFTA replacement with leaders from Canada and Mexico.
Todd Pyro joins us live with a preview of all this. Hey, Todd.
Hey, guys, we're monitoring what's going on there in Argentina for you. We'll keep you posted throughout the course of the morning. Meantime, all eyes on the president as he meets with those leaders. Happening moments from now, the president is going to sit down with the Argentine president, Mauricio Macri, for that bilat. But one leader not on his schedule, Russian President Vladimir Putin. The president announcing the cancellation of that meeting on Twitter, saying, quote, based on the fact that the ships and sailors have not been returned to Ukraine from Russia, I have decided it would be best for all parties concerned to cancel my previously scheduled meeting in Argentina with President Vladimir Putin. I look forward to a meaningful summit again as soon as the situation is resolved. Last weekend, you'll recall, Russian forces attacked 3 Ukrainian ships in the Crimean Sea, wounding 6 sailors. Senator Elizabeth Warren firing back at the cancellation.
Vladimir Putin testing Donald Trump. That's what this is about. And he's just trying to figure out how far can we push him? And what will the president do by way of response?
Senator Lindsey Graham giving Putin his own words of advice.
I want Putin to understand that if you trample over international norms, you're finally going to pay a price.
And a much anticipated meeting today between President Trump, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, and Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto. They are expected to sign the replacement of the North American Free Trade Agreement, or NAFTA, after reaching that deal in September. Also, a meeting with China's President Xi Jinping this weekend could pave the way for a deal with the U.S. The two expected to talk trade at dinner tomorrow. Guys, back to you.
All right. Thanks, Todd.
Okay.
And President Trump demanding the Mueller probe come to an end immediately. The president tweeting that the investigation is an illegal hoax and, quote, Mueller refuses to look at the real crimes on the other side. Where is the IG report? His tweet comes after his former attorney, Michael Cohen, pleads guilty to lying about knowledge on the proposed Trump Tower project in Moscow. The president's current lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, tells the New York Times that the president's response aligns with Cohen's plea. Meanwhile, a key witness in the Russia investigation says a criminal complaint against Robert Mueller could come down as soon as today. Attorneys for conservative author Jerome Corsi say the document will outline how the special counsel and Mueller's team prompted Corsi to allegedly lie under oath and commit other violations like witness tampering. Corsi rejected a plea deal offer from Mueller this week.
Fired FBI Director James Comey wants the feds to squash a subpoena that's asking him to testify behind closed doors. He previously said that he would rather answer questions about the 2016 election and Russia and Hillary Clinton investigations publicly when he's due on Capitol Hill on Monday. Comey's attorneys argue that it would stop the committees from using the private hearing to push a political agenda. One of President Trump's judicial nominees now seemingly destined to fail. South Carolina Senator Tim Scott announced that he will not support Thomas Farr's nomination. The Republican cited a 1991 memo that connects Farr to a voter intimidation campaign against black voters. Scott's decision prevents Farr from being confirmed, at least at this time, because Republican Jeff Flake and every Democrat, they are all no's. And you needed Tim Scott to get him in. All right, Vice President and Second Lady, Vice President Pence, I should say, and Second Lady Karen decking the halls of the Naval Observatory. Law enforcement officers and their kids invited to a holiday celebration inside the Vice President's residence.
Also ready for Christmas, the White House, our own Ainsley Earhart getting an exclusive tour of First Lady Melania Trump's decorations.
You could see the color red. It represents the bravery, heart, and patriotism. Every room has a different representation, and this year it's a theme of American treasures.
It took 230 volunteers 6 days to decorate the White House, and we will have the full tour on the next hour of Fox and Friends.
Yeah, be cool to see.
It's cool, yeah.
All right, 10 minutes after the hour, President Trump making it clear that he's not going to be meeting with Vladimir Putin during the G20 summit for a multitude of reasons, it would appear. National security analyst Dr. Rebecca Grant says that this doesn't mean that Putin is off the hook. She explains what she's talking about there, coming up next.
And your presence is a present to JetBlue. Hell, the airline literally wants to wrap you up and send you home for the holidays. Don't go anywhere. Good morning and welcome back. President Trump canceling his meeting with Vladimir Putin to send a message to the Kremlin about their aggression against Ukraine.
I think this is the right signal at the right time, and I appreciate that, and I hope it will be followed up by more decisive action when it comes to the misdeeds of Putin.
All right, so does this send the right message to the rest of the world, and what can we expect when the president addresses other G20 leaders?
Joining us now with her expert insight is international relations expert Dr. Rebecca Grant. Doctor, thank you for your time this morning. What do you think of the news when the president decided to officially cancel this meeting?
He's done the right thing, and he's canceled this because Russia fired on Ukrainian Navy ships and then seized them and held them. He's trying to send a very strong message. NATO backs this up. This is the first open and direct use of Russian military force against Ukraine, and so an essential step. We have to contain Russia's ambitions.
You know, a lot of people think that it was partly because of what's happening in Ukraine right now, but also because the Russia investigation and Bob Mueller has exploded with activity here in the last couple of days, and it might not optically look good to be hanging out with Vladimir Putin in Buenos Aires. What do you think about that?
I really don't see that at all, and Putin is not off the hook. Angela Merkel has taken on the task of meeting with him to raise the issue of the tensions in Ukraine. There's a possibility of even more Russia sanctions. So there is plenty going on in the world, and I think that is what President Trump is reacting to. We've also seen an increase of NATO military forces, more NATO air policing over the Black Sea. It's a very serious situation, and I don't think this domestic issue has much at all to do with President Trump's international response.
Here's one of President Trump's tweets on this. He says, quote, based on the fact that the ships and sailors have not been returned to Ukraine from Russia, I have decided it would be best for all parties concerned to cancel my previously scheduled meeting. And then in another tweet, he says, in Argentina with President Vladimir Putin, I look forward to a meaningful summit again as soon as this situation is resolved. I think most people, Doctor, agree that this meeting is going to happen at some point, but the question is when.
And there is an invitation for Putin to visit the U.S. at some point. Trump and Putin need down the road, sometime in 2019, to talk again about nuclear arms control. They need to talk about space, and they need to talk about Syria. But now Ukraine has really come to the top of the list, and Putin is pushing Ukraine closer and closer to NATO. So I expect to see discussions about Ukraine as well, but this is just not the moment. Now, Trump may encounter Putin there at the summit, but this is an important step that he's taken to deny this meeting at this time. Good move on his part.
Yeah. All right, to another interesting topic, and another guest at the G20 summit will be, well, I guess the de facto leader of Saudi Arabia. But you have this conflict in Yemen, this civil war. The Americans, the U.S. has been backing the Saudis and trying to fight this terrorist group that's been trying to take over in Yemen that's backed by Iran. And now it looks like we're not going to be funding that anymore, or at least that's what the Senate is voting for pretty handily, to stop the support of the Saudis. What do you think about that?
Yes, and Rob, there's a huge backstory here, which is, according to Secretary Mattis, the sides in the Yemen conflict are pretty close to starting some serious negotiations in Sweden. There's a ceasefire that's supposed to take place. We've seen fighting diminish a lot since the middle of November. So although the Senate has said no more funding going forward, in fact, the UN Special Envoy is working to get a ceasefire, and we're hoping for negotiations. So the Pentagon is starting to plan for a massive humanitarian relief effort. And Saudi Arabia and the UAE have pledged over $500 million to fund relief supplies into Yemen.
Doctor, the president has faced pretty tough criticism over his handling of Saudi Arabia. What do you think about how he's handled it?
Yes, he has, and I think he's handled it fairly well. You know, Secretary Mattis said that he had actually listened personally to the translation of what went on, and, you know, there's no smoking gun is what we've been told. Saudi Arabia remains a key ally. They're a member of the G20, the only Arab nation in the G20. We're not giving up that alliance, but the best thing for Saudi Arabia right now is to take this chance, show their humanity to the world, put this ceasefire into place in Yemen, and then back it up with the humanitarian relief that they have pledged to the Yemen situation.
And this is kind of this whole thing has been kind of a gift to Iran by backing off the support for the Saudis here. It's interesting to see how that plays out. All right, Doctor, thank you so much. We appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you.
And a Fox News alert, a live picture from Argentina right now. President Trump expected to leave for a bilateral breakfast with the Argentine president any moment.
We're going to take you there live just as soon as it happens. It's about 7:18 there in Buenos Aires. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. Evacuations ordered overnight as a lot of rain has brought flash floods and mudslides to fire-ravaged portions of California. Families up and down the state ordered to leave their homes as streets filled with mud, ash, and debris after everything burned and all the rain came down. A dramatic water rescue in the very swollen, unusually swollen L.A. River. Look at this. Rescue teams pulling up a man clinging to a semi-submerged tree. Look at all of that water in L.A. And overseas, flash floods carving a path of destruction in the nation of Turkey. Cars swept down the street in the resort town right on the Aegean Sea. Wow, that is something. In Canada, 90-mile-per-hour winds ripping the roof right off a restaurant in Newfoundland. That storm also bringing down power lines, uprooting trees. There's a lot of weather around the world right now.
Yeah. Two men are recovering this morning after surviving a plane crash on the campus of Kennesaw State University. The plane headed to Fulton County Airport from Omaha, Nebraska, when it went down on the Georgia campus. Early indications point to engine failure as the cause. Police say the two people in the small plane were conscious and alert when officers arrived. Wow.
AT&T taking on Netflix by unveiling a new video streaming service.
That's right. Tracy Carrasco from our sister network, Fox Business, is here with how they're reassuring their big money investors. So what's this about, Tracy?
Yes, good morning. AT&T trying to get into other businesses besides wireless and besides their traditional pay TV service. So they're coming out with this new streaming service next year. They're going to have 3 tiers of it, and they're going to have original movies and television series from Warner Brothers, Turner, and HBO. So they're obviously trying to take on Netflix, obviously also trying to compete with Disney's new streaming service that will be coming out. AT&T didn't say how much these tiers would cost or which movies and TV shows would go along with the tiers. But one other thing AT&T trying to do to reassure those investors, they're saying they're going to pay down debt, possibly sell some assets to pay for the acquisition of Time Warner.
That's interesting. So JetBlue wants to wrap you up like a gift and send you home?
Yes, this is a great idea for the holidays. JetBlue, they're going to be picking 5 winners of this Go Get Gifted contest. And they will wrap you up like a present with a bow on top, deliver you to your destination so you can surprise your loved ones for the holidays. So you can enter now through December 12th. Go to JetBlue's website. Tell them why you deserve to win this contest, and they will pick 5 winners.
They're not really going to wrap you, though, right?
Yes, I think they are.
How do you sit on the plane, then?
They're going to stick you down with the luggage in the bottom.
They're going to maybe wrap you before you get there. Maybe you can be on the plane in regular clothing and then get gift wrapped once you arrive.
That's an interesting idea, Tracy.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
And a Fox News alert, President Trump expected to leave for a bilateral breakfast with the Argentine president any minute now.
He's got some really big meetings coming up in the next few days at the G20 summit, including one that he's already canceled, and also signing a new trade agreement today with Mexico and Canada.
He's also expected to meet with Chinese President Xi Jinping on Saturday to talk trade. We will take you live to Argentina coming up. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. We have a Fox News alert happening right now, and you see these live pictures. President Trump about to sit down for a bilateral breakfast with Argentine President Mauricio Macri.
Yeah, the two here chatting. It's almost 7:30 in the morning in Argentina. If we have audio, let's go ahead and listen in.
All right, looks like we're getting that audio set up. But, I mean, Rob, as we've been talking about this morning, a number of important meetings scheduled, and then one specifically that we've been talking about with Vladimir Putin has already been canceled.
Right, yeah. The president trying to get the words in English there in his ear as the president there speaks there in Buenos Aires this morning. And, yes, this is a big set of meetings the president has.
Yeah.
I guess we're going to pull out of that. We're going to get back to it.
We're going to go back to it,
of course.
Yeah.
As soon as they start speaking in English and everybody can understand, we'll go back.
But, yeah, I mean, some of the highlights here, of course, we talked about what the president's expected to do today. We can see him already getting his day started. But we know on Saturday he's expected to meet with Chinese President Xi Jinping, talk about trade there.
Yeah, and there's been indications from his economic team that there could be a deal in the works with China, and that would really relieve a lot of the stress on American businesses and could do a lot of good for our economy to know that that gets straightened out if the United States gets a good deal, and the indications are that the president wouldn't sign a bad deal because he doesn't like bad deals. So we'll see where that goes. But it was interesting also with the Mueller investigation really ramping up this week, and with the situation in Ukraine, he cancels a meeting with Vladimir Putin right after he took off for Buenos Aires yesterday.
You know, a lot of the reaction to that, though, has been that it was the right move to make right now. And we just heard from Dr. Rebecca Grant a couple minutes ago saying that now is not the time to sit down with Vladimir Putin. With the news that happened over the weekend near Crimea, as you talked about, between Russia and Ukraine. And so, you know, that meeting is expected to happen at some point, just not now.
Yes, and it's I think optically it wouldn't be good after all of the criticism you got for what happened in Helsinki. To meet with Vladimir Putin right now probably wouldn't look good. Let's go ahead and listen in. I guess we want to listen in. Okay.
Argentina, that they will bet on Argentine talent and that they will help us build quality jobs. Also, tourism is very important. We are getting more and more citizens from around the world, but the country that is exporting most tourists to Argentina is the United States, which I think shows the affection from the Argentine people for Argentina and the interest in our country. So thank you very much for visiting us. We'll be having a meeting, and I'm sure we'll find a whole lot more ways to work together and cooperate for the benefit of our people and the people of the United States. Thank you, Donald, for being here.
I think I understood you better in your language. That's okay. I wanted to say that I've been friends with Mauricio for a long time, many years. People would know that he was a very young man, very handsome man, and we knew each other very well. And I actually did business with his family, with his father, his great father. He was a friend of mine. And I purchased the West Side Railroad yards. And it was a great job, a successful job, a very big job, one of the largest jobs in Manhattan. That was in my civilian days. And so I always had fond memories. Little did I know that his son would become El Presidente. Little did I realize that you were going to be. And little did you realize that I was going to become president. So we've known each other a long while. We're going to be talking about lots of good things for Argentina, for the United States, including trade, including military purchases and other things. But we have a lot to talk about, a little bit old times, about 95% business, I would say. But this is a great honor to be with you. You are my friend, long time, great family, and you're doing a fantastic job. I want to congratulate you. Thank you.
Bien, señoras y señores, finalizadas las palabras del señor presidente de los Estados Unidos de América y del señor presidente
the President of the United States and the President of Argentina, both leaders now leave to hold a private meeting. Thank you all very much for being here.
So we're not going to get any answers or any questions coming out of that bilateral meeting. They're going to go eat now. You learned something new.
Yes.
That apparently they had a business deal, President Trump and the family, I guess, of Mauricio Macri, the
he said he's
president
known him for
of
a long
Argentina.
time.
Known him for a long time. And so Hudson Yards here in Manhattan on the west side has always been an industrial area, railroad yards.
Right now.
And it's booming. Miss Jillian Mealy used to live in a building in Hudson Yards on the west side. And apparently there was some kind of business deal back in the day when apparently the president of Argentina was a very handsome man.
You know, President Trump's, as we know, always been a very strong businessman, though. So it's not surprising when you hear these stories, but sometimes you hear them out of the blue like that, and you're like, whoa.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure the media is chomping at the bit to get some answers to some questions and get some FaceTime with the president. That might happen later on today. We'll see.
So they have a lot to talk about, talk about trade, talk about military purchases. So we'll, of course, keep you updated. Of course. But for now, let's get you caught up on some of your other news that we're following, including this. Overnight, Vice President Pence meeting the remains of 2 fallen Special Ops troops at Dover Air Force Base. The bodies of Army Captain Andrew Ross and Air Force Staff Sergeant Dylan Elchin returning to the U.S. Those American heroes, along with Army Sergeant First Class Eric Ament, killed by the Taliban in a roadside bombing. 13 U.S. service members have been killed in Afghanistan this year, 5 this month alone. The man accused of murdering his brother's entire family and lighting his own home on fire is due in court today. Paul Canero charged with killing his brother Keith along with his sister-in-law, niece, and nephew, then setting their New Jersey mansion on fire. Prosecutors say Paul also set his home on fire. To make it look like the whole family was being targeted, they think he was motivated by money. His lawyer says he is innocent. It defies logic to me. Tough criticism coming from retiring House Speaker Paul Ryan on the legitimacy of California's ballot counting process. Ryan tells the Washington Post Republicans won many races there on election night, but ended up losing almost every one 3 weeks later. The House Speaker blames ballot harvesting. That's when a third party collects completed ballots from voters and hands them to election officials. It just became legal in the state this year. California's top election official is firing back, tweeting, quote, "In California, we make sure every ballot is properly counted and accounted for. That's not bizarre. That's democracy." The U.S. will have a man on the moon at all times within 10 years. NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine telling The Hill TV this will lay the groundwork for commercial flights to space.
I think we're probably within 10 years of having continuous man presence on the moon. Now, we're building a space station, we call it Gateway, that's going to be in orbit around the moon. Think of it as a reusable command module where we can have human presence in orbit around the moon.
The announcement comes as Vice President Pence holds a meeting at the White House about establishing Space Force.
Okay. And thank you, Jillian, very much for those headlines. Moving on now, the economy is moving in the right direction, and Obamacare is really lacking at this point. New numbers showing sign-ups for Obamacare have dropped 13% so far during this enrollment period. The president's critics say his economic policies are undermining those Obamacare marketplaces. Joining us now is Nan Hayworth, member of the Independent Women's Forum Board of Directors and former Congresswoman as well, and a great person to have on this topic of Obamacare.
I'm a doctor, too.
Yes, and a doctor, of course. You have too many accolades. We can't get them all into one sentence. So let's talk about this for a second. Yeah. You say that it's a good thing that Obamacare signups are down. Now, the Democrats will fight you on that all day long, saying the less people have health care.
Well, you know what we want to see is everybody having health insurance they can afford, Rob. Right. So I think what we can deduce from the drop in Obamacare exchange plan enrollments is that, look, this is the market's judgment. This is the public's judgment on those plans. Obamacare, unfortunately, these exchanges created plans that provide really less than full value for money, and they're very costly.
Right.
So the rising economy has meant that millions of Americans have gone back to work, and a lot of them have been able to get employer-provided health insurance.
That's a good point.
Which is great.
Yeah. But what do you say? I mean, to the people that say that the president and the Republicans have been trying to poison Obamacare, they take away the individual mandate, so now it's not going to be funded. Right. It was looking dicey to begin with, and then it started to make a comeback, Democrats say, and then it just got taken down by Republicans. What do you say to that?
Well, there definitely have been moves that have weakened the appeal or the power of Obamacare in the marketplace. One of them is that, yes, in the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, the individual mandate was taken down to zero, basically. It wasn't quite eliminated, but it was taken to zero. And that's definitely prevented people from having that incentive to go out and buy an overpriced insurance policy. Sure. The other thing, though, on the positive, and I would call that a positive for people, you know, they're not being forced, young people especially, to pay exorbitant rates for coverage that really isn't terribly good.
That they don't need, probably.
And that they don't need, exactly. With narrow networks, the provider networks are not where they should be. But the other aspect is that the Trump administration has also allowed people to have the option of buying more limited plans at a lower cost.
Yeah.
And that, too, is taking them away from the exchanges. And again, those exchange plans are loaded with items like, for example, children's dental care for a single man or a single woman. Things that they don't need to pay for. So the fact that they're not appealing in the marketplace, again, that's the public's judgment on Obamacare. And it should tell folks who like Obamacare there's something wrong with the law.
Right. I ask you this every time we talk about this subject, and I'm wondering if you see any progress in this department. The Republicans haven't had a very good answer to this question. What are they going to do about health care?
Right. And they should, Rob. They've got some great things happening, frankly, from President Trump's side, on the administration side, to make insurance plans affordable, to provide, to tailor them to people's needs. Association health plans are a great thing for small businesses. They've let small businesses get together so that they have more power to negotiate against big insurers.
Right. That was a good thing.
And it's a great thing. Exactly. Yeah. States are doing wonderful things with Medicaid plans for their citizens, those folks who really can't afford to be in the insurance marketplace.
So you see a plan coming together, formulating, but it's taken more time than it should have.
Well, yes, for a lot of reasons, and with the Democratic majority in the House, it's going to be even more challenging. But President Trump's going to keep working on it from the administration side.
We'll see what happens. Doctor, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you, Rob.
We'll be right back.
Good morning to you. It is Friday, November 30th, and this is Fox and Friends First, happening right now at 4 a.m. here on the East Coast. A Fox News alert for you. High-speed chase. A pickup truck fleeing Border Patrol flips over after hitting a spike strip. The deadly crash right outside the U.S.-Mexico border. And speaking of the border, the mayor of Tijuana now slamming the caravan organizers as the real criminals.
Those are really criminals because they're dealing with lives. They're dealing with people. That's a federal crime.
The exclusive interview on the growing crisis at the border. And President Trump bringing America first to Argentina for the G20 summit, the high-stakes sit-downs, and the one meeting that is no longer on his agenda. Fox and Friends First starts right now. And good. We're watching Fox and Friends First on this Friday morning. I'm Heather Childers. Thank you, as always, for starting your day and ending your week with us. Let's get straight to that Fox News alert for you, though. A deputy U.S. Marshal is shot and killed while trying to serve a warrant. The suspect, Ryan Schlesinger, shooting the officer while barricaded inside a home in Arizona.
Oh, my God. Get behind the car. Hurry up. Go. Go inside.
Schlesinger eventually surrendered and is under arrest. He was already wanted for stalking law enforcement. The name of the deputy killed has not so far been released. Well, also breaking overnight, 3 people are dead and 8 others injured after a truck crashes trying to escape Border Patrol. Agents trying to pull over the truck. It was on a California highway less than 10 miles from the border when the driver sped off at speeds of up to 100 miles per hour. The truck losing control, crashing into an embankment, and then hitting a spike strip. The American truck driver is under arrest, and we'll follow that story for you. But in the meantime, Tijuana's mayor is now taking aim at the organizers of the migrant caravan, saying that he's never seen a situation like this before. The mayor sitting down for an exclusive interview with Fox News. Griff Jenkins is embedded with the caravan in Mexico. He's been following it for us, and he joins us now live from Tijuana with more. Good morning, Griff.
Good morning, Heather. He is the man at the center of the storm. Truly, Mayor Juan Manuel Gastelum is the guy that has to bear the brunt of this caravan and the 6,000 strong that are here. But let me just show you some of these images. Now, overnight, it has been pouring for 24 hours, Heather, and you see the absolute trash that's everywhere. You see a baby stroller. There are children here living in these conditions. It has been in the mid-50s for the last 24 hours, and we know that people are sick. They're not feeling well. They don't have enough food. And when I asked the mayor about the impact it's having on his town, here's what he had to say.
We're a migrant town, Griff. Yes, but we have never had this problem. No migrants trying to cause trouble. All migrants came in peacefully. Some of these people are coming in violently, unrespectfully, not as a good law-abiding citizen, and that's what hurt us.
Now, remember, we reported yesterday that more than 60% of the people here have respiratory infections. There's lice, there's HIV/AIDS, and there's tuberculosis in this population. Off camera, actually, health officials tell you that they're very, very worried. It may be worse. But when I asked the mayor, who's to blame for this? Who do you hold responsible? He said the organizers, and he said it strongly. Listen.
Those are really criminals because they're dealing with lives. They're dealing with people. It's a federal crime. If they ask me, do you know who they are? No, I don't know, but just look at the films. Look at them and you'll find who are they.
And when he talks about films, he's actually sort of alluding to what we saw on Sunday when the migrants rushed the border and the leaders that were encouraging them to do so. He's worried that we could see that possibly again. And he's also possibly working with officials to see if they can get other spaces. The field is flooded. There was also yesterday, just very quickly, I want to mention a hunger strike that started with about 50 people, a handful of this caravan, but the police shut them down. They were not able to go to the border where they intended to carry that out. Heather?
Yeah, just such a mess down there. And the list of illnesses that you had for us yesterday is just incredibly disturbing. Griff, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Well, this morning, the other big story, President Trump waking up in Buenos Aires for the G20 summit. He will attend a bilateral breakfast with the president of Argentina before signing the NAFTA replacement. Todd Pyro joins us now live with what else we can expect. Good morning, Todd.
Good morning to you, Heather. In less than an hour, all eyes will be on the president as he meets with world leaders in South America. But one leader not on his schedule, Russian President Vladimir Putin. President Trump announcing the cancellation of that meeting on Twitter, saying, quote, based on the fact that the ships and sailors have not been returned to Ukraine from Russia, I have decided it would be best for all parties concerned to cancel my previously scheduled meeting in Argentina with President Vladimir Putin. I look forward to a meaningful summit again as soon as the situation is resolved. Last weekend, Russian forces attacked 3 Ukrainian ships in the Crimean Sea, wounding 6 sailors. Senator Elizabeth Warren firing back at the cancellation.
Vladimir Putin testing Donald Trump. That's what this is about. And he's just trying to figure out how far can we push him? And what will the president do by way of response?
Senator Lindsey Graham giving Putin his own words of advice.
I want Putin to understand that if you trample over international norms, you're finally going to pay a price.
And a much anticipated meeting today between President Trump, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, and Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto. They're expected to sign the replacement of the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA, after reaching a deal in September. Also, a meeting with China's President Xi Jinping this weekend could pave the way for a deal with the U.S. The 2 of them are expected to talk trade at a dinner tomorrow. A busy schedule for President Trump.
Yeah,
Heather?
Absolutely. Todd, thank you so much.
Okay.
You know, that's not all. President Trump could strike a breakthrough trade deal with China at the G20. And Fox News contributor Mark Thiessen says our president has the upper hand.
And I think Trump has all the leverage going into this meeting for 2 reasons. Number one, the U.S. economy is booming, whereas China's is stagnating. They've had the worst economic growth this year since 2009. And second of all, the Chinese took their shot at Donald Trump this year. If you recall, after he put his first sanctions down on China, they retaliated very smartly. What they did was they went after Trump voters. They targeted soybeans. So they were targeting states like North Dakota and Indiana and Missouri, hoping to help Trump's opponents and then maybe have him lose the Senate over these tariffs. And what happened was the opposite. So the Chinese took their kill shot to try and go after him, and it failed. So what that means is going in, Trump really doesn't mind the sanctions because the Trump voters in those rural states that were depending on China trade backed him in the last election and gave him a mandate to get tough with Beijing.
Well, President Trump is planning to raise U.S. tariffs to 25% on $200 billion of Chinese goods, and that could go even higher if talks do not go well. We'll have more on this coming up as well. Well, President Trump demanding for the Mueller probe to come to an end immediately. The president adding on Twitter that the investigation is an illegal hoax and that, quote, Mueller other side. Where is the IG report? His tweet comes after his former attorney, Michael Cohen, pleads guilty to lying about knowledge on the proposed Trump Tower project in Moscow. Rudy Giuliani telling the New York Times that the president's response to the special counsel aligns with Cohen's plea deal. Well, Michael Cohen just pled guilty, as we said, to a crime. Yet despite a lack of evidence against President Trump, he's the one being prosecuted in the court of public opinion. The president is. Molly Hemingway, senior editor for The Federalist, says that it's outrageous that accountability has become a partisan issue.
We don't say, here's the person, find me the crime. We look for crimes and then we determine what should be done about it. We actually have evidence of all sorts of criminal things, like criminal leaking of classified information against Trump officials, lying to a FISA court, all sorts of problems like this that aren't even being worried about by people who think, well, if we just keep digging, maybe we can finally get Trump. And it's been unfortunate that we've seen so few people held accountable for lying to Congress, even in this Russia story. For instance, Christopher Steele, who built the entire Russia dossier, was referred by the head of the Senate Judiciary Committee almost a year ago because they knew he lied to the FBI.